okay? Now, man, this is an important slide. I don't know if I made a note on your notes. Let me see if I'll flip it over. Oh, yeah, I put essay topic. You better believe it's an essay topic. You might also want to write EOC next to this. Man, the EOC loves to ask questions about why the U.S. entered wars, what caused our entry. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at this. The United States in the beginning did not want to really become involved in this war. Remember, we are what? Isolationists. That's right. Root word is, are you saying it? I want you to say it. Say it. Isolation, which means isolate. I want to keep to myself. But all of a sudden, a couple things starts to happen. The first thing that really kind of happens is the fact that Germany starts using unrestricted submarine warfare. In particular, they sink something, and I need you to make sure you note this. Massive, massive note. After you write this down, you can pause it if you need to. Sinking of the, now say this, Lusitania. Say it. Lusitania. Now, the Lusitania, after you write it down, you need to make sure that you take and you put, it is a passenger ship, which means it has what kind of people on it? Military or civilian? What kind? Civilian. Now, the worst thing you can do to America is kill civilians. Think 9/11, yes? Man, we come out fighting. So the Lusitania is saying that's one thing that happens. Now, it's not the only thing, but it's one thing. The next thing is a little thing called the Zimmerman telegram. Okay? The Zimmerman telegram. I'm going to give you a chance to write down Zimmerman telegram right there. Number 2. Okay? Now, let me explain to you what the Zimmerman telegram is. It's unbelievably important. The Zimmerman telegram is a telegram from Germany. Are you writing this down? From Germany to Mexico. And get the message. This is phenomenal. The message is this. Hey, Mexico, from Germany. If you go ahead and you enter the war, World War I, on our side, we'll go ahead and give you back Texas and California in that area. Wait a second. Have we entered the war when the Zimmerman telegram goes to Mexico? No. So we have Germany telling Mexico that they can have our land when we're not part of the war. Do you see a problem with this? This automatically tells Woodrow Wilson, is Germany going to come after us? Of course it is. So that's one of the things that makes us enter. Last thing, they sank 4 merchant ships of the United States. Remember those underwater boats? Submarines. They actually call them German U-boats. You might want to write that down. In fact, I'm telling you to write that down. Make sure you understand. A submarine, a German submarine, is what we call an underboat. They actually called it an undersea boat. Imagine a German saying that, okay? These 3 things happen throughout the progress of the war. And pretty soon it becomes apparent to the United States of America that they are coming after us. They're going to sink our ships and they're going to kill our civilians. So guess what we do? U.S. declare wars on Germany. April 6, 1917, which gives us the year 1917 that we are going to take action. So there are your 3 things that caused the United States to enter World War I. Now, this is one of the front pages of the newspapers, kind of interesting to see. Officially at war, Wilson signs resolution 1:13 o'clock today. Basically, we are now in full war mode. Man, it's important, okay? Important you understand that when we go to war back then, it's not like going to war in today's day and age. We go to war and sometimes our gas prices go up in 2014 and it pisses us off. Back then when you go to war, you literally realize it in the entire country. Home front, the men go to war, the women go in factories. Man, it's a complete different thing right there, okay? It's kind of an interesting cartoon or question right here. If you want to pause it, see if you can figure out the answer. It says Zimmerman telegram influence to enter World War I. Overthrow. See if you can figure out the answer to that one. You might see it again. I hope you pick G. Go. Now, let's talk about the modern war. Ooh, that word modern. Modern. Okay? I want you to make sure you understand what that word modern means. It means now, present, up to date. Now, take a look at everything you're writing down. In fact, go ahead and pause this right now. Pause. Write it down. Pause it. Okay. Hopefully you paused it. You wrote it all down. Let's talk about this. First thing is submarine warfare. Okay? That is going to be a new technology in this day and age. Okay? Was not used at mass until World War I. Then the next thing we got, rapid fire machine guns. Rapid meaning, ooh, fast. Now, this is going to be interesting because instead of, loading my gun, putting the gunpowder in, packing down the musket ball, aim, oh, you're already dead. Now we can just feed guns in, and all of a sudden it shoots out over 500 bullets in a minute. You can literally cut down a tree with some of these machine guns, which means we're going to increase casualties. This number of casualties for this war, unbelievable. Now, here's the one I really want you to make sure you start. Trench warfare. Trench warfare. Now, you guys know what a trench is, right? I hope you know what a trench is. It's a massive, massive hole, lined hole, and they dug them all across Europe, and thousands of miles of ditches were put in, and it was called the trench warfare. Over 6,000 miles of trenches were in World War I. The in-between land, ooh, you did not want to be in that, because basically what they did is they stuck those rapid-fire machine guns over the trenches and just shot. That's what we call no man's land. The lines never move, resulting in massive important. I need you to circle stalemate. Massive. Think about what something is as if it's stale. That means it goes bad, right? It's sitting there. Trench warfare is absolutely unbelievably awful because what it does is it makes you sit there. Sit there. Okay? And when they just sit there, they don't move, people are dying, there's no progress. Now, the only thing to get over the trenches are tanks. Bam. That's going to be another use of modern technology. Designed to break through barbed wire, massively important. First time we've ever seen this. Airplanes, primary function to observe enemy activities. One of the first wars we're going to see warfare airplanes. In fact, one of the most famous German guys was some guy named the Red Baron. Now, the one that really, really, really takes it into and makes me really scared, I'm going to be honest with you, especially as a military brat with a brother that goes over and serves for our country, the poison gas. It was introduced by the Germans, specifically, out beside poison gas, can we make sure we write mustard and chlorine. All of this together we've never seen before, which is why we call, and get ready to write this down below, very bottom of the page, America's first modern war. Okay? That's because we used all this technology. It's going to change the history of warfare forever. It's important that you understand the progression of technology throughout the wars, especially for your AP US history topic of technology. Make sure you understand. We go from the British and Americans marching in lines. Well, the British were marching in lines. They were stupid. That's when we did guerrilla warfare in the American Revolution. To now Civil War, we start doing, you were having a little bit of rifles, that kind of stuff like that. It was, again, less arduous, but still there. World War I, oh my gosh, massive change. Submarines, machine guns, trenches, tanks, airplanes, poison gas, you name it, we used it. Now, this is kind of interesting. Not anything we got to put in our notes. You might want to put soldiers were called doughboys somewhere, but that's about it. The doughboys were a nickname for American soldiers. Everything World War I looked very, very tannish grayish. Kind of interesting to see. The wool cap, the soldiers. One thing that was absolutely disgusting in the trenches was all the water and the lice and the buildup and the rats and the dead bodies that were laying there. So they a lot of had really, really good boots and wrappings, although it really didn't work very well. Anyways, I just thought it was interesting. Wanted you to see it. A lot of these pictures are something that you need to make sure you take a look at. This right here, we're going to do something in class called timeline of the technology. This is what we call a howitzer. Oh, you're going to love the name of this when we talk about it in class. Kind of interesting. Big Bertha could launch a shell over 9 miles. This right here, why do you think that these soldiers... Wait, oh, the horse has a gas mask on too. First time ever gas was used. All these airplanes. Here you can see trenches. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Oh, this is beautiful, isn't it? This is what we call trench foot. Okay? Massive issues are going to be because of the trench warfare. Here's your machine gun. Okay? That's going to increase your number of casualties. And this poor guy, oh, it makes me so sad. That's what your chemical warfare is going to do. In fact, interesting thing is that guess who's fighting on the German side? Hitler. And Hitler would see what that gas would do to people. And then, oh, it makes me so sick to my stomach. He would then use it on the Jews. Okay? Now, the realities of trench warfare, I'm going to skip through that. I don't want this to be too long, are pretty disgusting. One person you need to make sure you know. There's only one general for World War I. Pause it. Get the slide down. Pause it. Now. Okay, now let's talk about He was named commander of the American Expeditionary Force. We call it the AEF. Circle that right there, during World War I by Woodrow Wilson. His name is John Blackjack Pershing. John Blackjack Pershing. Don't know why they called him Blackjack. That would be a really good extra credit question. Yeah, I might ask that. Insisted that U.S. soldiers fight as a unit. He said, we cannot be spread throughout the French and the British and the Russian forces. He said, we're going to go in together. And he led the Battle of Argonne Forest. Make sure that you underline that super important battle. But his name is John Blackjack Pershing. He's a pretty legit guy. I'm not even going to lie to you. Okay? Now, one thing, here's a little EOC question. You're always welcome to pause, see if you can answer it. It might pop up on a test. Now, the home front. Here's the big thing here. Home front. Circle it. Home. Oh, wait. I did on the notes. Never mind. Okay. What this means. What is this? I'm literally talking about the USA soil. Okay. When we talk about world wars, we're going to talk about the fact that literally every single person in this country fought the war. Not just the soldiers. Something that's kind of hard for 2014 people to understand. Make sure you understand that the home front is what we do at home. Now, the first thing you have, it says is selective service right here. 2.8 million, and then I made it red. What do we call this? The draft. So selective service, almost 3 million people were drafted. Of course, that's something the home front helps out with. The next thing we have is War Industries Board, or the Creel Committee, okay? Coordinate production of war materials. In your notes, I specifically put they coordinated, what's that P word that means an advertisement to make you feel something or do something? Propaganda. Make sure you know that as well. We're going to look at some propaganda in just a second. Daylight savings time, that's a big star. I love this. This is genius, okay? The idea was created by Benjamin Franklin a really long time ago, but it isn't instituted until World War I. Daylight savings time is when it's light longer, which means you use less electricity. And when you use less electricity, you can then take your money and you can put it into the war. There you go. Saves us money so we can put all our resources towards the war, win it, and bring our boys home. Now, the very last thing, and I'm going to go into this a lot more detail in class, but I just want you to get it down. Bonds. They call them Liberty and Victory bonds, which is propaganda in and of itself. Now, World War I propagandas, it says click here to see. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's go ahead and see if it does. I don't know. No, yes, no. Nope, didn't work. Okay, it looks like we're going to look at some in class, so no worries on that. But propaganda, remember, it's an advertisement. Massively important. Ooh, here's a good EOC question. The United States enlarged its military by the Selective Service Act, which is also known as the, what did you just say? I hope you said draft. Okay, now the next slide. Here we go. This might be a good time to just pause, guys, and take a break. I mean, you are totally welcome to do that. But I want to make sure you're getting this all down and you're really comprehending it. Schneck v. United States. Ooh, a versus. That means it's the Supreme Court. Now, the first thing you want to do is make sure you get down this slide. The thing you're going to be writing is right down here. Again, in times of war, the Constitution, First Amendment in particular, is not absolute. Now, what happened is on December 20th, 1970, this decision was passed down. This guy, Charles Schneck, was convicted in federal district court for violating what we call the Espionage Act. Circle that right there. It literally means he just spoke out against the government. You'll notice he said, don't what? Register for the draft? But guess what? Technically, we have freedom of speech. But during a time of war, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said, during times of war, no American has the right to speak or publish with the intent of obstructing justice. If you don't register for the war, that means we can't win the war, which means you're stopping justice. This is when he makes the very famous claim that if you shout fire in a crowded theater and people get trampled to death, you can be held accountable. So what he's saying is Schneck can't say don't register for the draft. It's going to be technically illegal at this time because we need to win this war to save America and save American lives. Big picture here, in times of war, U.S. Constitution is not absolute. If you'll remember back, do you remember what Lincoln did? Technically a little questionable. Do you remember? He suspended the writ of habeas corpus, meaning from D.C. to Philadelphia, you could be thrown in jail without anybody really giving you a reason why, because he thought you might be a Southern sympathizer. When we get to World War II, you'll notice these notes are at the bottom of your page. Make sure you're doing it. Okay, FDR takes and he throws all the Japanese people in basically camps to make sure that they aren't spying on us. So during times of war, you're going to notice sometimes we do things that you probably don't think is really appropriate. Last couple years, 10 years after 9/11, a lot of people have been talking about the Patriot Act, which is where literally they can come in and look at my emails. We don't know if that's constitutional or not, but it happens, so get over it. I'll get to that later. No. Oh, here's some propaganda posters. Perfect. Just kind of take a look at them. Defeat the Kaiser and his U-boats. You buy a Liberty bond. Literally, bonds are where you give the government money, they give you a slip of paper, and then they take that money and put it towards the war. Only the Navy can stop this. You'll notice this guy's a German. Bloody sword. Third Liberty. Did you buy your Liberty bonds? Buy Liberty bonds. The more bonds that you buy, the more money the government has to use towards the war. I'll talk more about it in class. Be patriotic. Ooh, food. This is something I really didn't mention too much, but it's a really good home front thing. Saving food, that kind of stuff, okay? More. We'll do more in class, okay? Now, with that, women's roles, okay? Massively important. Remember, when you need a break, take a break. Okay, women's roles. Women fill in factories. Here's the deal. Men go off to war. Women come into the factories. Okay, they leave their jobs. Women go to work. It's one of the biggest ways women can help out in World War I and World War II is go to work, especially World War I because they did not serve in any military service really, besides the fact that sometimes they were allowed to enlist as the Navy. Temporary jobs, I'm going to be real honest, the big thing you should circle, number one job a woman did back then was a nurse in the Army, okay? That is the big thing. No combat, nothing like that. Women helped out a ton, but they helped out by going to work in the factories. You got to think about this. If I go to work in the factory and I then take and produce guns or bullets or airplanes or whatever it is, that means there's more stuff to go towards the war, which means we win the war faster. Women are part of that if they're working in a factory. Now, the nurses, of course, your help caring for the sick. That kind of stuff is important. Women are absolutely important, okay? In fact, when we get to World War II, FDR made a really cool comment. He said, America has a secret weapon, the women. Because the women, let's be honest, were pretty legit. Okay, next up. Oh, African Americans. Here we go. So make sure you note that on your notes I specifically said you need to make sure you know what the minorities did that contributed to the wars that we study. That's EOC loves to ask those questions. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how much they love it. Okay, so here's what we have here. African Americans in World War I. I'll be very, very honest with you. It wasn't massively the best thing in the world because they still were segregated. I need you to make sure you take and circle segregated. Make sure you do it. They were segregated. However, they were allowed to fight. And it's absolutely one of the best things in American history that we can go all the way back to the American Revolution. Heck, even the French and Indian War, the Civil War, all these wars. African Americans were fighting with us, so we definitely want to make sure we know what they did. Best thing about World War I was this unit called 369th Infantry Unit, New York City, Harlem Hellfighters. Now, anytime you see this word Harlem, I need you to put an arrow and put basically think African American. Harlem, African American. These guys were some of the most famous guys in all of World War I. They had a parade for them when they came back. You got to think about the fact the more African Americans that bust their butts and prove that they are absolutely vital to American history and America as a whole, they're fighting for civil rights in a way of their own. And those guys are going to do an amazing job in making sure that African Americans get those rights. Now, the other thing that you need to know about African Americans during World War I, if they didn't fight in the Harlem Hellfighters or whatever unit that we're talking about there, the other thing is they took and they left the South because they weren't being treated very well. Jim Crow laws. Ugh. Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but, did you say equal? That kind of stuff's still going on. So a lot of the times when a lot of these men went to go fight in the war, they were leaving these factory jobs that paid pretty good money, okay? Well, African Americans in the South were like, heck yeah, let me get out of the South. Let me move to the North, from South to North to fill factory jobs, and bam, there you go. We have what we call the massive star, Great Migration. Root word of migration, migrate, to move. Then here's a good question, okay? See if you can answer that question. During World War I, many African Americans lived in the South, moved to northern cities because prejudice, affirmative action, progressive living was on. I hope you answered number 1.